Hello and welcome to Group Chat. My name is Chris Ryan. I'm joined by Haley O'Shaughnessy.
I'm a #1 seed.
Are you?
In the NCAA tournament.
Congratulations.
Thank
Justin,
you.
Are you in the NIT?
Shouts to Kemba, though.
Justin Verrier's here. It's March Madness, which means the NBA is in somewhat of a hibernation state. You know, like I think that every year this sort of happens. The eyes of the sports world deviate from the NBA and concentrate fully on unpaid amateur athletes as they strive to make it into the NBA. What's up with you, Haley? How you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm a little upset because of a college basketball team that might have not made it to the NCAA tournament, but you know, this is NBA Group Chat.
Yeah.
I'd rather just not talk about it. Talk about the NBA.
We want to start talking about what I'm referring to casually as the Reddit Super Bowl last night, which was Lakers Warriors. Just a really robust response to this game. This is kind of the fun part of the season where really only the true addicts come out. You don't really see a lot of people staying up late on the East Coast for Warriors Lakers without Steph, Clay, and Draymond and Kuzma and Ingram, unless they really want to be there. And it was a fun game. The Warriors wound up winning 117-106. KD went for 26, 5-5. What a weird Warriors team.
But you loved it.
I like watching Kevin Durant in full flight. So, and I think that for the first part of his career, that was obviously run through the Russ filter. And then since he's moved to the Warriors, he's been part of like this incredible machine. But I think that he has that capability to basically play like 5 positions at once. I mean, it's just so wild. He can switch on anyone. He can bring the ball up the court. He's an incredible rim protector. It kind of brings me to this first question I wanted to ask you guys. And I was playing around with this because I think the starting lineup was KD, Nick Young, Quinn Cook, Kevin Looney, and Zaza.
My guy, Quinn Cook, Pelicans legend.
I know. And now also apparently like Warriors glue guy.
Yeah.
Did like a new like real chemistry.
I have a fun
guy.
fact about Quinn Cook.
Let's hear it.
He has more career starts than average points per game.
Wow.
Where'd you get that fact?
I looked him up on Basketball Reference today.
Wow.
Just to see what he had last night.
He's a great guy.
There was something the other day somebody was talking about like, I think it was like Sam Bradford has more millions of dollars than he did touchdowns or something like that.
I believe it, yeah.
Me too.
But I was starting to think about with these guys, with this really weird zombie Warriors team, which still managed to beat the Lakers. If you had to have one of like the all NBA like superstars that you would trust to win a basketball game with, say, the lower 15 or 20 percentile of NBA players. So basically what we saw with this Warriors team last night. Who would you pick to do that? Who is the guy who you think could win a basketball game with the basically bottom of the NBA barrel?
Did you also come up with this question by watching the Celtics game last night?
I didn't see the Celtics game last night, but but that was also like a weird zombie game, right? Where
the only 2 normal starters were Tatum and Aaron Baines, so basically Tatum.
Oh yeah, I did see Andrew Sharp, my buddy from old Grantland days, tweeting that if the Wizards lost to Aaron Baines, that he would do some bodily harm to himself.
It took a double overtime for them to not lose the Boston's bench.
What did Marcus Morris have? Like 30?
Yeah.
It was insane.
He had
And then
31.
Terry Rozier
This
ended
is
up playing like
March.
15 minutes.
Terry Rozier
What
had
a
like
time.
21, yeah.
But if you had to pick a superstar and then surround him with trash, but still win an NBA game, who's the guy you'd pick?
Well, this is kind of my expertise.
Yeah, I know.
Been in New Orleans for 2 years. It's funny. I didn't tweet at all yesterday, like throughout the entire day. And yet some guy went and found me and tweeted at me and was like, this is basically what Anthony Davis has been doing for 2 years.
Right.
Now, they haven't made the playoffs both of those 2 years. So I think that's important context. But I would probably say LeBron, and we're kind of getting to see it now. I mean,
Yeah.
his teammates are probably league average, so they're not Quinn Cook, Nick Young-esque, but he's the type of guy who can make a lot happen with less.
Well, I think Concepcion pointed out on Twitter about I can't remember what the context was, but he did point out that LeBron did take Boobie Gibson and a group of guys around Boobie Gibson's level to the finals.
Yeah.
So LeBron is definitely more than capable of it. So you would say LeBron.
Yeah, Danielle Marshall. Key
That's
to that team. Yeah.
I'm also saying LeBron, and with the idea of KD doing it, I do think that definitely last night you could see like this is a guy who is going to make everyone better and not necessarily have to do it the Westbrook way, because he took 19 shots last night. He had 26 points. Where the couple games before without Curry, he had 39, 40, and 37 points. But then last night he had 26. And the quotes after the game were like, yeah, he made us a lot better. Like he's doing the things that we needed him to do. But he's just a self-proclaimed not alpha. He doesn't want that role. He's not going to come in and have that role every night. So I wouldn't give it up to Kevin.
He's George Harrison. Like, I think that, like, personality wise,
sure.
Like, I think he's much more like chill than, you know, I think it's Steph and Dre or John and Paul. These are Beatles, by the way.
I was like,
who's Ringo in the scenario?
Bible character?
Who's Ringo?
Clay.
Clay is Ringo for sure.
Yeah.
But if I think Draymond's Lennon and Steph is McCartney and Durant is George
That makes a lot of sense.
and Clay is Ringo.
Okay.
These are just personality types. It's not necessarily.
I know. I
It also means
don't have anything to add.
Are you into the Beatles?
I know some of their music.
Okay.
you listen to the White Album, like the chopped and screwed version.
Yeah, T-Pain does a cover.
Yeah.
The reason why I think that he would be the best player to do it is because somebody like Steph ultimately needs a couple of guys around him who can shoot, right? Because he's not going to be able to get down low and get his own shot all the time. And part of what makes Steph good is like he attracts so much gravity from other parts of the court, but his ability to find people or turn the ball over, which is sometimes the case, to find other shooters is key to his like value as a player. I love watching him play, but it's not like he could pull up from 35. Although Davidson fans may disagree with me. Davidson fans may be like, have you ever heard of anybody else who went to Davidson after, you know, like on that team?
Steph would be the most fun person to do it.
Yeah,
it would be like watching Colin Sexton play 3-on-5, because that's essentially what you're doing with Steph.
Right. I'm sure Russell Westbrook is listening to this right now, and I'm sure he's just like, challenge accepted.
Harden would be interesting.
I know,
too.
but we've literally seen this.
Yeah, that was
exact
last year,
experiment
right.
with Westbrook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harden would be fun.
Yeah, just because, like, I mean, they did a certain version of this last year where they basically just went out and overpaid shooters to be around him.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you'd have to get guys a little bit better than Quinn Cook and some of these other ones, but like he basically operated an entire team for an entire season.
Can I throw another guy out there who I'd like to see do this? And sometimes you can make the argument is doing it on some nights.
Sure.
Is Ben Simmons. Because physically, well, not unlike the LeBron thing. Like he can't shoot, obviously, but I do think that physically he poses a unique threat to the opposing defense. There's just not a lot of 7-foot guys who can move that quick and see the court that way. And he can do things underneath the rim that I don't think somebody like Steph can necessarily do on a consistent basis. Just a thought.
Sure.
Anybody else you want to nominate? Anybody else you want to say, I don't think they'd be good at this?
Well, I think I already said Russ.
Yeah.
Which he did get to the playoffs. So kudos. But
Andre Drummond.
yeah, that's all. Well, I mean,
Blake, yeah.
Blake couldn't do
Blake
it.
could not do it. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this Lakers team. They were without Kuzma and Ingram last night, but we haven't really spoken about them in a while. And in that time, they've like become pretty decent.
Yeah.
You know, they're 20-9 since the famous LeVar Ball saying that the team is quitting on Luke Walton piece, apparently. Or they're 20-10 now, I guess, probably. They've had a couple of guys have their moments this season, like Kuzma, obviously. Kuzmania swept the nation earlier in the season. And now in the last, I don't know, like 15, 20 games, it seems like it's really been Julius Randle's moment, which is convenient for Julius Randle because he's got a contract coming up.
Yep. What timing?
Yeah, right.
Convenient.
And then last night, after he has this ESPN feature about how it's his moment, Isaiah Thomas tries to like put him back in the young player box. Didn't go well. I credit to Isaiah. Didn't seem like he was backing down, even though there was a slight reach advantage on Julius Randle's part. They got into it last night on the sideline. Have you been enjoying watching the Lakers recently?
Yeah, sure. They've actually been better in my eyes than like the beginning of the season, where watching them was like fun, but also you were like, well, they're definitely still the Lakers. And with Isaiah Thomas, it's interesting to see those things still come out after like it went so badly in Cleveland when he like confronted Kevin Love, and you know what I mean? And like kind of everyone was like, well, you're the poison from this team. And then he comes to the Lakers, he's doing the exact same thing. That's fun. I really enjoy watching Lonzo. It's so funny to go back to the beginning of a season and like listen to what we were saying about him, what everyone was saying about him. But Lonzo actually is really impressing me on defense too, which has been fun for me to watch.
Why is Lonzo not? Am I missing the part of the internet where they're just really ethering Lonzo for his shooting?
No, people are like the niche basketball fans that you're talking about who are coming out now at this point in the season with March Madness going on are the ones who love Lonzo.
Okay.
It could be just a straw man, but there is this just belief that because Lonzo is such a lightning rod for everything, that he's just catching flack constantly. Like even just anecdotally in like our office, like people are ready to shit on Lonzo pretty readily.
I think that one thing I'd love for him not to do is take 11 threes a game.
Sure, he's not good at it.
You know,
or not yet.
Or like 1 for 8 last night, 1 for 7 the game before that, 1 for 6 the game before that, 1 for 8 the game before that. It's just like, stop shooting so many threes. You can't make them.
Yeah, he had a moment.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about it where it seemed like he'd kind of course corrected to a certain degree, but he's kind of going right back to where he was before. So it seems like that was the outlier, the good shooting.
Yeah, I would say shoot or shoot, except for him.
I mean, tell that to Ben.
Yeah. But he doesn't shoot threes.
That's true.
Yeah, he doesn't
Literally
even, like,
zero.
I think he's not even attempted one.
Yeah.
He knows what
Kind
he's
of
good
talking
at.
about like shots in general.
Oh, well, I mean, he does like a lot of weird runners in the lane and stuff, but most of his shots are like open baseline dunks.
Who do you think could be the better shooter at the start of next season from deep? Ben or Lonzo?
I'm not even joking at this point. I would like, I think that if you gave me good odds, I'd put money on Fultz.
He wasn't even in the question.
Really?
I know. I'm saying a guy who has missed all of this season because he destroyed his own shoulder and possibly mind with his shooting mechanics, I think might be a better shooter than Lonzo and Ben next season.
Are you saying that because
I've seen
Fultz?
iPhone footage of him
Oh my
shooting
God.
without a hitch.
I guess in theory, like we've seen these other two guys be bad shooters and we've never seen Markelle Fultz shoot anything, and
Except
thus
in college.
there is that whole thing. It's kind of like Michael Porter Jr. Like if he just never played at all, maybe he could be the next LeBron. We don't know.
I know. I think it's like, I mean, I at this point though, I mean, Lonzo also, the thing that, you know, what everybody says is just that like the free throw shooting is always like a good indicator of your natural shooting ability, and Lonzo is like a 40% free throw shooter this year, right?
Yeah, he's been fine. I do think about all of these guys in the context of like, will they fit next to LeBron?
This is where I wanted to go with this, is because everybody has been people have been getting pretty affectionate about the Lakers. And like we always say this, and I think it's a cliche, but it's true. Good Knicks teams, good Lakers teams, and good Celtics teams kind of excite the league. It gives the league a sense of like a connection to its past and a connection to its history. And I think everybody would love to see a Lakers team in the playoffs that wasn't like a Kobe zombie squad like this anymore. Next season, obviously, they're being linked heavily with LeBron, heavily with Paul George. To make that happen would require it to be a different team. And there's obviously also rumors that LeBron has zero interest in playing in the Ball family circus here. So if you're a Lakers fan, after this nice second half of the season, albeit beating some teams that are tanking, would you rather have Paul George and this core of guys, Kuzma, Ingram, Lonzo, maybe even re-sign Julius, or LeBron and Paul George and, you know, whatever the bare minimum that you need to keeping in mind that LeBron typically wants older players around him, and that might mean the end of Kuz, or that might be the end of, you know, even probably Lonzo, if not like guys like Josh Hart and ZJ and all these other guys. What do you think?
I think that if you're a Lakers fan, you want LeBron or I would want LeBron, because you have not won in such a long time after being like the team with the player, you know, for like a really long stint in the league. So you like really want to get back to winning. But
you immediately become the most fascinating experiment in basketball. Like immediately.
Sure.
Like everybody watches every Lakers game all of a sudden.
Sure, but people are going to watch them anyway. And especially if like Paul George comes. And that's what I would say to do. Not only because it makes the league more interesting, LeBron going somewhere else, but I think that this would really build up the team that they have now. And we've already seen so many of them improve, like Ingram and Randall. And so that I think is better long term.
It kind of gets to the heart of the question with all these young Lakers players is like, LeBron and Paul George are stars. They are bona fide all-star caliber players every single time they step on the floor. Whereas we don't even know what these guys are on the Lakers still. I think there have been flashes and there have been like good signs. Julius Randle has played particularly well since the beginning of the new year, since the All-Star break. But at the same time, like, are we sure it's not just empty stats? Are we sure that Lonzo Ball is going to be more than just like a ball mover and an occasional like good defender? Are we sure that Brandon Ingram can stay on the court? Because he's like dealt with some injuries over this past couple games. And so it would obviously be great to have the 2 stars in there, but I think the bigger question is, even if they are there, what are these other guys? They have to play ancillary roles. And is Lonzo Ball the type of guy who could play off of LeBron if he can't shoot? Is Julius Randle, whose shooting is come and gone, can he play off of those guys?
Do you think that this is sort of an example? Because the Lakers obviously don't have their pick this year, their first round pick. So it's either going to go to Philly or Boston, depending on where it falls. And in all likelihood, it'll go to Philly now. Do you think that this is an example of sometimes psychologically the Lakers don't have to worry about like where they can kind of play free? You know, they want to get these younger guys better. They can go out and compete every night. It's not bad for them to finish 10th in the West, although I'm sure they'd love to finish better. Is there something to this where it's better than like what the Magic, even though the Magic beat the Bucks last night, or the Magic or the Kings or the Mavs or the Suns are kind of faced with this almost a second half of the season of misery?
Yeah, because the Lakers' history grants them this kind of allowance, but also I think for LA fans, Magic and Rob Pelinka inherited what's going on now, but they changed ownership. So if they're like, oh, well, it's going to be different, if they have a sign to like get them through the rest of the season, you know, they have a big summer coming up. They're going to be able to make room if they want to. So there is something to look forward to. And at the same time, you have a lot of young, exciting, promising players. Like you said, we're not sure, but it is fun to see the flashes from Kuzma, from Ingram, from Lonzo, and now from Randall, who honestly, I always thought it was strange that they were like, this is the guy who we're going to trade. And maybe they haven't said that outright, although I think that they might have hinted at that.
I think he was in the mix. It was like in the summer he was in the mix, and then he became more of a...
Well, then they didn't extend him. So yeah, I think that they actually, it's easier to look forward for them because you guys have the history, whereas like there's a lot of pressure on a team like the Magic. They're like, oh, we're awful again. Yeah. Crazy. But with the Lakers, they have a future ahead of them.
Yeah, I think there's just a point where if you're going through your second cycle of tanking, and I know the Magic are in their second front office, you're starting to look at the whole Ponzi scheme. You're starting to look at what the people were criticizing the Sixers and Sam Hinkie for, but both Sam Hinkie and the Lakers, they actually nailed their picks. And they also, by the way, they tanked properly. They didn't just finish with like the 5th pick or whatever. And so they have guys going forward. Now, they also screwed up with D'Angelo Russell. That was a missed evaluation or just an improper like development of him. Yeah. And now they're faced with the same thing. But it's good to see signs of certain things because at a certain point, like you can't just keep doing this, especially if you're the Lakers and you're going to be on national TV regardless.
I want to ask you guys a little bit because I want to talk about Randall a little bit more and what we think he could be. But you know what's really interesting about him is his draft class, because you've got Jabari, you've got Randall and Gordon, all big, top 10 picks from that 2014 class, all not extended, right? Embiid is Embiid, and he's obviously at once a generational talent, but also you're just never sure if he's going to play more than 50 games, right? And then you've got guys like Wiggins, who's been in the news a lot recently. We were going to get to him later, but I think we could talk about him now if we'd like. Like Wiggins, who now we've got this really strange report out of Minnesota that Wiggins is unhappy as the third option behind Towns and Butler, which is weird because Butler's not playing right now. And Wiggins is having a decent enough March. I think he's averaging like 28 game right now, Haley, right?
Since Butler's been gone.
Or at least in March, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely stepped up and taken more shots. But the Wiggins situation is interesting because I can understand why he would be upset. You went from 2 seasons as this guy who was doing whatever he wanted on offense and had to share with Carl, but Carl wasn't even in his position. And so it was like, I'm just going to do whatever I want on offense. I'm the guy. And then he also got paid a maximum contract. So if that doesn't allude to, they're confident in me being the guy, then, he could be like getting mixed signals. But at the same time, Megan Schuster said this on Slack, and she's absolutely right. If you don't want to be the third option, you have to not play like a third option every night. Even last year and the year before, like he's so passive sometimes on offense and then, most of the time on defense. If you're that passive, I don't know how you're expecting people to go to you more. And also, he's not a great assist guy. He's not a great, like, let me make other people better type of player. So I think that maybe, I don't think he can fit that role that he wants to fit.
There's always been something around his role at the Wolves there was that whole thing when Glenn Taylor was like, I want to give this guy the contract that he wants, but he has to show me that he wants it. Kind of like,
he was like, you come here. It was like this long standoff with his contract this summer. And Glenn was basically like, I have to wait and shake his hand in person and make sure that
look
he
him
tells
in the
me
eye
he's going
and
to try.
see if he was properly motivated. There was a weird play like the other night that was very, I think, indicative of Wiggins. It's where he was against the Wizards. And I think it might have been actually towards the end of the game, but Wiggins like split a double team and you're just, and he's like slashing towards the rim. And you're just like, this guy is like really, really, really upper echelon, like athletic slasher. And
Maple Jordan.
And then he just like passes it off to Bjelica, which is fine. But it's like, you're the guy, man. Like, throw it down. Like, don't go for a weird corner three here. I mean, I can't remember what the score of the situation was, so I don't want to like misconstrue it. But it was like one of those times where I'm like, you have all the tools to be the person you think you are, yet there's this thing that happens at the last second where you're like, let me give it off to Jeff Teague. You know?
I think that actually is unusual. Well, an unusual situation in two aspects. First of all, Bjelica has been really good filling in into the lineup and them shifting while Jimmy's been out. And he was also hot that game, if I'm not mistaken, if you are talking about the Wizards game.
I am, yeah.
And the other thing is that if Wiggins is going to drive to the basket, if he's going to do a little ISO, he rarely passes it out. That's just not his move. So I do think that that's unusual. But what you're saying about like, you're the guy, like that's almost like, that's like 1/4 of his performances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he shows up and it's a good Wiggins game and we're like, oh, like this is him. This is what he could be. The problem is like he's not that guy all the time.
Yeah, I spent some time with him right before the draft because ESPN had this like photo shoot thing I went to and I had to do something for it. And he was like headstrong, but really passive. You're right. He was very tame. And I feel like that's kind of borne out over the course of his career. But like Haley's saying, I think if you're a wing in today's NBA, I just don't think you can be just a scorer. You can't just be like 2005 Ricky Davis. Like you have to be able to get guys involved. And it's an interesting parallel to in juxtaposition with Jimmy Butler, because Jimmy is just doing so much for this team. Whereas Wiggins can almost like his duties were streamlined and it still wasn't working. He still wasn't scoring efficiently. He still wasn't making the extra pass. He still wasn't getting down low and like rebounding with some of these guys, which is what his athleticism kind of like points to. You should be able to make those effort plays because you're just so much bouncier and better than all these guys. And he just doesn't do that. And so it's almost like he's so concerned with the superstar aspects.
Yeah.
But he doesn't realize that the dirty work is what makes someone a superstar.
Yeah, and this 14 draft class is really strange because I think that there's a couple of guys like that in there, like Aaron Gordon. You're like, you have all the tools. Now, granted, like Aaron Gordon's been in a really like, I think probably like detrimental situation in Orlando where you have that kind of coaching and front office upheaval and like a lot of trades. And like you've been playing with a point guard who can't shoot. So this floor doesn't get spaced right. He only in last season has turned into an outside threat. So that adds a whole other element of his game. But you go through this list of guys and it's a lot of like, I still don't know, or, you know, it never happened, or what if. It's like Wiggins, we were just talking about, Aaron Gordon, we were just talking about, Exum just battling injuries throughout his career. Smart, who's kind of had, I know he's a folk hero in Boston, but you know, like this has been like a really tough post All-Star break second half of the season for him, between the punching the glass and now that like this finger problem that might keep him out of the playoffs.
I want to just ask, did we ever find out what was on the picture that he punched?
Like, was it a mirror or was it like just a
it was
portrait?
John Wall.
Yeah.
It was a picture of John Wall. Smart, Randall, we've talked about being up for, he didn't get signed an extension. Now he's going to be hitting the market. Stauskas. Vonleh never turned into the stretch four god that people thought he would be. Right. Elfrid Payton on the Suns, like kind of like out there in the desert. He'll also, I think, be up for free agency this season, correct?
Yep.
McDermott bouncing around the league. Šarić, awesome as like a third or fourth guy, but like, Zach LaVine, injuries on his second team.
And was feeling the same thing that Wiggins was feeling last year.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument that the two or three most consistent guys in this draft after Embiid is, and I guess Wiggins, but Wiggins comes along with all that number one pick stuff, are Nurkic and Jokic.
You know what?
And Gary Harris.
I would actually disagree with you and say Clint Capella.
Oh, interesting.
Down at,
okay,
25.
so but let me ask you, if Clint Capella's on the Magic, like what do we...
We don't know. You're right. We actually don't know.
Because Jokic to me is fascinating because Jokic is that, like, Jokic, if Jokic was on any team, I think hopefully a coach would be like, well, I guess got to give this guy the ball in the high post every possession and just watch him be basically friggin' Jason Kidd in a 7'2" body or whatever. But I see what you're saying. Capella's turned into this awesome player, but I have no idea what Capella looks like.
Yeah, he's very much
on the Nuggets,
a beneficiary of the situation he's in.
But yeah, this is like a lot of guys. Rodney Hood, up and down, second team. You know, Shabazz finally coming good on Portland, but probably going to be Jameer Nelson for the rest of his career, right?
That hurts.
I'm sorry. I just find this class to be kind of fascinating. I mean, Kyle Anderson, again, not extended, probably going to do pretty well for himself in this offseason because he's gotten way more usage without Kawhi. In a weird way, he's like a big beneficiary of Kawhi being out. Fascinating class.
Yeah, Josh Eustace was that weird experiment that the Thunder had. With
That's right, where they were like, and they could have drafted... With Eustace, they could have had Kyle Anderson. They could have had KJ McDaniels. I remember people were killing them for not drafting KJ McDaniels that season. Whoops. You know, G-Rob 3, Jeremy Grant, guys who were basically role players. But, you know, Jokic and Nurkic and Gary Harris wound up being three of the most consistent, at least, contributors in this class.
Yeah, the Nuggets have done a really good job of just like picking from low and like being early on these international guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And now, having said that, they're probably not going to make the playoffs.
I know. We're going to talk about another player from this class and another team that's trying to figure out what they are as they hit the postseason after a quick word from our sponsors. All right, guys, we're back. I want to talk a little bit about the Bucks. This is very, odd season because they started out, they had an MVP candidate, if not an MVP favorite after the first 30, 40 games or whatever. We wrote about Giannis 3 times a week in the first half of the season. And they made some win now moves in terms of getting Bledsoe. They also fired their coach. And they didn't go get a big name after that. They went they promoted an assistant, made him the coach the rest of the season. They've been in and around as high as the 3rd seed for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they are in 8th, and it is only by the grace of the Detroit Pistons that they are not struggling to stay in the postseason. They're 3-7 their last 10. They lost to a team in Orlando that is actively trying not to win.
Not only that, we have to say this. Orlando flew in on game day.
Yeah.
They arrived at 2:36 in the morning. The night before, they had a vicious beatdown by the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
Vicious. They were returning from a 10
getting their asses kicked. Yes.
road trip in which they went 0-5. All of that, they came in and did this to the Bucks.
Yeah.
That's atrocious.
And let's just go over their starting lineup real quick. DJ Augustin, Jonathan Isaac, Jonathan Simmons, Mario Hezonja, the God, and Nikola Vucevic.
And let's talk about that starting lineup because they helped the Magic jump all over the Bucks 36-20 in the first quarter. And this is Brew Hoop has a pretty cool article about this. I think it was from a couple days ago before this Magic game even, where it's just the Bucks are getting smoked in a quarter per game. There's a quarter where they just are not there. And there's a lot of cool stuff in this piece. I can give it to Isaac to put in the show notes, but it's basically about whether it's the starters who are getting jumped on or the bench players, and it's happening in the first and third quarter. But there's watching them and it was this first quarter against the Magic was an interesting example because you could tell they just took their foot off the gas at a certain point. They kind of get the game going and it's back and forth. Not great body language, honestly, across the board.
Oh, terrible body language.
Even Giannis, who is still putting up great numbers, and I think is the only reason. I think that their on-off numbers with Giannis are astounding in Giannis's favor. But even him, just a lot of every time a Magic basket would go in, his shoulders would drop and his head would go down.
I think that's a product of realizing where his team is.
Yeah.
And the fact that going forward, what can they do to fix this?
I don't know. And this is what I want to talk about.
I think so much of it is wanting to play. We were talking about their defense and how awful it looked in the first quarter. I mean, it helps that Simmons was on. He was having a good night. But at the same time, they could have any shot they wanted.
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
Clearly, it was 36-20 at the end of the first quarter.
So they're 3-7 in their last 10, and they are 9-9 since Jabari Parker came back on, I think, February 2nd. Their numbers with Parker on the team are pretty mediocre. They're fine. They're about 9-9. That they're the numbers you'd expect from a 9-9 team. On-off numbers are almost uniformly better with Parker off the court. Now, granted, he's probably playing with second unit players and everything, but it is they're not going to have to worry about this much longer. They're not going to re-sign Parker. They didn't extend Parker. I don't think Parker really wants to play there by all accounts. I mean, I don't know if you've heard otherwise.
No, I wonder what his next contract is even going to look like.
I do too. I wonder whether, I mean, the problem with him is that a guy like Aaron Gordon or a guy like Julius Randle, if you're Randle, like you could even be like, you know what, maybe I'll sign like a 1-and-1 or 2 or 3 year deal with the Lakers and then be up again for free agency in my prime. With Parker, with these 2 knee injuries, like he's going to have to hope he can find somebody who gives him like a 5-year deal, right?
Yeah. Randall has the foot thing that he had early in season 2.
True.
So yeah, it's going to be fascinating because I think he does.
I mean, Gordon's had injuries too. Yeah,
Gordon
it's
too.
true.
Yeah. I just think Parker contributes to their biggest flaw, which is on the defensive side. I think everything we said about Jason Kidd was like, what is he doing with these defensive schemes? Why is he so aggressive? And they got rid of him and they played better for a while. But we look at it here and over the past couple of games, they've just been getting blown out on that end. 126 points to a team like the Magic is just incredible. And I wonder how they fix that, just because they brought in Eric Bledsoe, a guy who you would assume would be able to help on that end. Jabari is just not that type of guy. Chris Middleton. It's just like a lot of the pieces don't really fit together.
Yeah.
And they've sacrificed picks. They've sacrificed cap room. And now they're in like this weird middle state where they're in the Anthony Davis zone way too soon. Yeah.
So this is what I wanted to ask is typically with, let's say like LeBron, right? Like LeBron, Russ, Harden, whoever you want to take from the upper part of the league, the best players in the league, they're known quantities. And we have enough tape and numbers and anecdotal evidence to talk about who plays well with LeBron, who doesn't, who plays well with James Harden, who doesn't. What does Russell Westbrook need? A bunch of guys like standing to the side and applauding him when he gets triple-double, I guess, whatever. But like we know what these guys need. With the unicorns, with Anthony Davis, although I think we know what Anthony Davis needs. He's 4 shooters. But with Giannis, who is still almost every game growing, changing, evolving, showing off his great, like his pros and cons of his game, we don't know what he needs as a complementary player. And it's not Parker, maybe, but this goes back to what we were talking about with Wiggins, where it's like these young guys who come into the league at the same time. And I'm actually thinking about this in terms of the Sixers too, where they're having a great season, but we don't know that Embiid and Simmons are like perfectly complementary players, right? We don't know. And like, even let's say Fultz was like better than Malik Monk this year, but not God, you know, like not Donovan Mitchell. We don't know like how that all would have like fit together. It's very telling to me that the Sixers are having some success playing like Ilyasova and Bellinelli and all these veterans who are just kind of like, I know what to do. I know my lane here. I'm not going to like overstep what I am. With somebody like Wiggins, right? We can go back to the Bucks in a second. Where does he know who he's supposed to play alongside?
Well, I think that's part of the reason that he was so upset when this quote came out and Butler was gone, because the quote included he's the third guy behind Butler and Towns, even though he wasn't playing with Butler at the time, is that when Jimmy's out, he's realizing he's still not the guy. It's still Karl-Anthony Towns, and it absolutely should be. I'm someone, and I think you've said this before, who has kind of criticized Kat sometimes for like kind of grabbing empty boards, like, you know, getting things getting high, these like crazy stat lines because things come to him. But he is absolutely closed fourth quarters for the Wolves. Mm-hmm. And for a Wolves team who lost the veteran that was supposed to be doing that, I mean, he was
the guy against the Wizards.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and Karl's been doing that. He did that against the Warriors as well. So I think that's kind of what's fueling Wiggins. And I think that what Wiggins wants is to be surrounded by guys who will shoot, but also give him the ball regularly and let him do his thing. But I'm not sure that's the recipe for a successful team.
I don't even know if that team exists.
Yeah. And I guess with the Bucks, there isn't that sort of hierarchy problem. We all know that it's Giannis, right? And it's all about what pieces go around him. I think they made the right bets to a certain degree. Middleton makes a lot of sense there. Thon Maker in a vacuum makes a lot of sense there. It just seems like everyone is always in a rush in order to take advantage of these like growing superstars. Obviously, Davis is the prime example. And like you said, we don't know what Giannis is going to be. He's still figuring out his shot. And I would argue right now is his adjustment period where he's taking a lot of mid-range jumpers, trying to figure out what he can do on that end.
It might also be people getting tape on him and being like, let's keep him there.
Yeah.
You know, if you have to, let him take that 15-footer and live or die off that.
Yeah. And I guess if you're being an optimist, you could say that a lot of the moves that they've made this season don't really screw them up too long. Like they don't have to re-sign Eric Bledsoe. They could let Jabari Parker walk. They can let Henson expire in 2 years. But it just seems like from an ownership front office side, there isn't the stability there that they used to have. You don't know if they're going to hit on the same sort of picks like John Hammond did back in the day. And you wonder if this is what they're doing in season, what are they going to do in the offseason? It's like way too sad too soon.
It's so interesting because even at the beginning of the year, we were like, the Bucks have drafted their way to being this team with a lot of potential success. And even the Bledsoe move seemed like it made a lot of sense at the time. And so it's just interesting how the script has flipped so much by the end of the season. And Chris, it kind of goes back to what you were saying about we don't know what these unicorns need to be surrounded with to, have ultimate success, where it's like Giannis is clearly the first guy.
Yeah, there are certain guys like I feel more confident that Porzingis can play with almost anyone than I do that. It's not that I don't think Giannis can play with anyone. I just don't even know like what you do to
what makes him the best.
Giannis. You know what I mean? Like Giannis is a force of nature, and he's, he can be so many different guys. He can be Karl Malone and Magic Johnson. Like in any given quarter, in any given possession, he can do that. But what does he need around him? And maybe what he needs is just shooting. Maybe like that's what the answer of all these guys needs is just like. Just get as many shooters as you can and let the rest work itself out. I don't know. That might very well be what the modern NBA asks.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem with all these unicorns is that they're so versatile. It creates problems like maybe not in the second or third chair, but like that fifth chair where you almost need someone just as versatile to be next to him. Whereas so unlike Anthony Davis, who's more of a traditional big man in air quotes, Giannis is probably more of a guard on offense who can't shoot. He's probably more Ben Simmons than Davis. From a skill set standpoint. And so you almost want to pair him naturally with a center simply because you need someone on the block, someone who could do some dirty work. But on the other end of the court, that's the complete opposite. You can't get that guy to do that.
Yeah.
Imagine like subbing in the Rockets role players on a team with Giannis. That seems like it would be absolute success. But then again, you could say that with every team because the Rockets role players are so talented and can also shoot so well.
And I think also maybe in the flow of the offense, like does Giannis become like, would Giannis be treated basically like the Capella roller? What would he be on that Rockets team? Because the one thing about that Rockets team, with the exception of, Chris Paul's a pretty good 3-point shooter. So you basically have like all these guys surrounding Capella, Giannis's 3-point shot, and a couple of these guys who are sort of still learning to shoot. They're really, you don't really know what they are until they can figure that out. You're right about the Bucks going forward though. They're on the hook like $19 million for Delly and Henson next year. Like that's brutal. Like it's like it's $29 million for Delly, Henson, and Snell.
Oof. And they just lost Teletovic.
Yeah,
I think he's just like an injury wash, and they might get an exception for him. But other than that, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them next year. All right, so we'll be back next Thursday to give you more group chat. Until then, for Haley and Justin, take care.